Okay, just 6 weeks after running 1 hour 36 for the half marathon, one of the athletes I coach has just run a marathon in 2 hours and 57 minutes. So double the distance and nearly 40 seconds per mile faster. And here's the part that matters. When he ran that half marathon, he wasn't yet a 2 hour 57 marathon runner, but he became one in the 6 weeks after his half marathon. So this video is really about one thing. How do you know if you're improving or just training? Every prediction of your marathon, the online calculators, your last race results, the numbers in your head, they all make the same assumption. And that is the person that you're gonna be on that marathon start line is the runner from your last result. If you feed that 1 hour 36 half marathon into almost any online race calculator, it will give you a 3 hour 22 marathon. So it's missed by 25 minutes. And why is it missed? Because it was measuring the runner that no longer exists. And if you're training in the right way, which you absolutely should be, then of course that assumption breaks. That's the whole point of training and being in a specific marathon block. Now, this wasn't a new runner. This was somebody who was passionate about running, who'd been working at his game for the last 7 years. And his PBs matched up for 10K, half marathon and marathon. He'd ran enough marathons to feel experienced, and he'd felt over the last couple of years that he just couldn't break that 3:20 point for the marathon. And this is exactly the point where I get very enthusiastic, because you're usually then working with somebody who's open to a new method, a new way of doing things. Because what has worked for him for years is now not working anymore, or there are diminishing returns, which is natural, but even more common when you've got somebody who's following the same method more or less and expecting somehow to have this huge breakthrough. His exact words to me on the first call were, within 3 years, I want to break 3 hours for the marathon. And so his plan wasn't a plan for runners. It was a plan specifically for him, targeting what is holding him back, his limiting factors, and there are usually many, and in this case they were, and then progressing those weeks, which takes discipline, but progressing the weeks in order to load the work, peak just in time before his A goal target race. And he was surprised just how quickly he moved forward. And that's usually in the form of feedback like, I've just run my half marathon PB within a long run, or I can now run my previous marathon pace in zone 2. If you're committing the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months towards a target, and you're gonna judge yourself, win or fail, based on that result, which is how most runners operate, not only are you setting yourself up to fail, you're also not getting one of the key factors, one of the key points of training, which is to develop a self-awareness strong enough to know so much more about yourself as a runner. And for me, the final goal is always, could I run a marathon on my limit and get the most out of the day without wearing a watch? So when it came to that half marathon and the way it was set up, he already had complete faith in the process. It had only been a couple of months, but that is so important to trust the process, because on a day-to-day basis, a week-to-week basis, if you want to look behind the curtain of what you think you could do now based on just a few weeks of training, it's a mistake and it's setting you back. But it's what most runners do. And the execution of that half marathon was absolutely perfect. He got the race card from me and followed it to a T. So not only did he get that race experience very close to the main A goal 6 weeks out, he practiced following the race card, following the pacing guidance, which he would then need 6 weeks later. And at the same time, he ran a very controlled, well-executed race on trained, fatigued legs. So a great data point, back into training as normal the next day. And he's not the exception. Here are 5 recent examples of 5 athletes with very similar pattern. So we've seen the 1:36 half, and then 6 weeks later, 2 hours and 57 minutes for the marathon, faster pace for double the distance. But then we've got a 1:29 half, and itself a big personal best, run controlled, and 5 weeks later, 2 hours and 58 minutes for the marathon. Same pace, double the distance, and a negative split where he ran faster than his personal best for the half marathon. Then we've got a 1 hour 43 half, a big leap forward in his personal best, and then an even bigger leap forward in his marathon personal best just 4 weeks later, where he ran 3 hours and 16 minutes. A 1:27 half. 6 weeks later, same pace, double the distance, 2 hours and 54 minutes for the marathon. Exactly the same, but quicker, with another athlete who ran a 1 hour 22 half, full control, the fastest he'd ran for half marathon, but then 8 weeks later, significant PB in the marathon, 2 hours and 44 minutes. Again, same pace, double the distance. Each one of those examples, different start point, different age, different life. But most important for me, different limiting factors, different things for each one of those that are holding them back. And so the plans look completely different. The type of session that they're doing looks completely different. And the progressions from those sessions are also written in a completely different way. And that's the point. So if you're looking at that wall thinking which version of that closely matches me, that's what the core link in the description is for. So what does that trajectory, what does that improvement feel like from inside? Well, first of all, your controlled efforts, depending on the session, start beating your old maximal effort sessions. And your key sessions are doable on train fatigue legs. You're also recovering fast enough so that you can train the next day. And so you feel that much more ready to execute the big sessions that really push you forward. And as I said before, all of a sudden you can run an old race pace at easy conversational pace in zone 2. If you're experiencing those things, then you're starting to attack some of the right elements. But if they're not, and for most runners, they're not, and if your feedback like theirs is, I'm working harder than ever, but the numbers are not moving, I just can't seem to improve, then the effort is not the problem. It never was. It's what you're targeting in training, and that's a diagnosis problem, not a willpower job. And notice what didn't matter on that wall. Some of those athletes have been running 2-3 years. Some have been stuck with the same times for the last 10 years. It doesn't matter how long you've been running or how long you've been doing anything. What really matters is what you've been doing. And by that, I mean one of 100 things. And once you start to change just 5 of those things that are each complementing not only the other 4 things, but all of your running, those improvements compound fast. And that's where you get these huge breakthroughs and a ton of enthusiasm from the runner, because they often feel like they're training properly for the first time. And it's a great feeling to think you're at your limit and then realize there are multiple levels above. Final thing, a runner came to me recently with a 1 hour 41 half marathon PB. He's done plenty of half marathons, but never yet ran a marathon. And his exact words to me were, by the time I'm 45, so in the year 2030, I want to run a sub 3. Most runners would agree that if you've got a 1 hour 41 half marathon and you've really pushed to that, then it is a multi-year project. That's what most people would think. But that assumes that he's been training in exactly the right way for long enough. But before we can know anything, we need to know the full picture. Training history, what he's been doing week to week, how he prepared for his last races, and every detail in between. But a big one is, what does the rest of your life look like? How much time have we got on a weekly basis to execute this project as quickly but as safely as possible? Until you've got the full picture, you're just guessing. And if you're guessing, then the plan, training schedule is irrelevant, because even with the world's best marathon plan, the question has got to be, the world's best marathon plan for who? So, have you been training in precisely the right way for you, or have you been putting all this time, effort, and energy without being sure that the training is pointed at exactly the right things? If you're in the second group, it's the easiest for me to fix. And for you, it's the most enjoyable process. So if you're looking for a major breakthrough in your training and then as a byproduct, faster results, then get in contact by booking a call in the link in the description.